Hey, everybody, how's it going? I'm Tony Paul, and I'm here today with Sarah Mariano. Sarah is better known as a stretch therapist, CEO of the Stretch Therapist Inc. She's an entrepreneur and health practitioner with a passion for nostalgia and a self-proclaimed funny woman. You can tell me if that's true as we get through this. But her passion and dedication has taken her all the way from the great white north to the LA lights. She has worked with everyone from Will Smith to Aubrey Graham, which some of you may know as Drake. I'm not sure if he goes by that anymore, but maybe a couple of you know. But today, Sarah's here to break down her journey and give you a unique perspective into what's beneath this therapist. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing after that intro. I feel like you need to be my hype man everywhere I go.
I could do it. I could do it. You know,
Before
I
I
just love
enter
when people
every
laugh,
room, you're just going to walk in first and give them a little like bio about me. I love
you
it.
know? But you make it easy. You've done so much. So I very much appreciate you taking some time actually to share with the people what your journey is, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are curious. I mean, especially now in these times with the pandemic and whatnot, everybody's looking at their own lives and kind of what they can do, how they can make their own way without depending on maybe a bigger organization, things of that sort. And you've managed to do it way before we've gotten to this point. So people are surely looking at you for some advice here. So I kind of want to dive into your journey and like learn a little bit as to how we got where we are now. So my first question surrounds your early life, right? Your time in Canada, where it's snowy and the food is plentiful, and you can get, on the same street, you can grab Jollibee or you can get some Jamaican jerk chicken. You could just do it on the very same
Mm,
street. You know what I
beef
mean?
patty. Take a
Right?
beef patty.
Right. But now before we get into your young childhood life, just which food is better? Do you like the food from Toronto where you get that multicultural,
Oh,
or do you like that LA food, that like kind of Mexican influence, Mediterranean sort of thing?
mm.
What do you like? What speaks to you?
Well, I'm actually in San Diego for the most
Okay.
part,
Okay.
and there's Mexican food aplenty here. I've never
Mhm.
eaten so many tacos in my entire life, but I'm gonna say, I mean, the food here is pretty good too. But I'm gonna go with Toronto. I like the
Mm.
multicultural aspect of living in Toronto, and the variety of food. And Toronto is a very foodie city, and I loved
True.
visiting new restaurants and trying new restaurants, and I loved variety. So I'm going to go with Toronto.
Absolutely. Okay, good. That's the right answer. So we're off on the right foot. We know this is going to be a good it's going to be a good interview because I prefer that as well. Although honestly, I've been to San Diego like twice. And I was like, this looks good, but I didn't get everywhere. So, maybe I'm biased. But let me ask you. So okay, so right now we know what you've done. We know all of the things that you've managed to build. But thinking back to your young childhood life in, Toronto,
Mm.
can you see kind of lessons that you might have pulled from your young life that have made you as driven as you are now? Like what has kind of like influenced you to go this path?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would, the first thing that comes to mind is my competitive nature.
Mm,
So by nature, I'm very naturally competitive. I always wanted to be number one at anything I did as a child, and that was the main driver. I think if we talked to my therapist and we went deeper, it's probably like this innate sense of need for validation, external validation.
fair.
Um, but for me, it was like I wanted to be number one, so I did whatever I could to be better. And I would get frustrated if I wasn't, and I would always ask my teachers, "Oh, who who got the best score or who got the best grade?" Or
Okay.
yeah. And so I was an academic. I was very into academics and I was very much into athletics. So
Mm,
I don't know if people know this, but I was an athlete growing up and I still love to play sports. So I'm also very naturally athletic. I may not look it, but I am. And so I would play all the sports and I would want to be the best at my position. Like my sports were I sprinted a lot. So
mhm.
track and field, long jump, volleyball. I played basketball, and then in university, I like competitive dragon boat racing
Oh
and
yeah.
volleyball and snowboarding is a huge one for me too. And I did martial arts, 8 different types of martial arts growing up. And
Oh, damn, you got me beat out. I topped out at 6. Damn.
oh,
Okay.
sorry, I did 5 martial arts for
Okay,
eight
cool.
years.
Better.
Oh my
Better.
gosh, so sorry. For 8 years, and yeah, so just this innate need to compete.
Mhm.
And you know, I was driven by, opposition, external competition before internal competition, which is
Interesting.
really interesting. I know a lot of people want to beat themselves. And
Mhm.
actually, no, for me, it's like, yeah, it'd be cool to beat myself. But if I can beat others, that's where the glory was in my mind.
Interesting. You know what? Honestly, I don't think that's so abnormal. I feel like for the most part, that's where the majority of us start, but I feel like
Mhm.
everybody's too scared to say it. I was the same way. When I was young, I just want to do better than that guy. Like I
Yeah.
don't I'm not thinking about what's coming next or how I'm growing internally, but I feel like as you get older, you very much see what the detriment of that is, like looking externally for that validation, and thankfully with things like therapy being so like widely accepted, it makes it a lot
Mhm,
easier for us to get to that
mhm.
point. That's excellent. Okay, well, let me ask you then. So you being a person who's very into athletics, hashtag follow at Sarah Fit Sarah Mariano on Instagram. Where do you find your athletic outlet is now? Like, what are the things that you do to keep active, especially being as busy as you are?
Oh, well, I love to go to the gym and work out. And I do a variety of things. I don't like to do the same thing all the time. So,
Mhm.
I just started boxing again, kickboxing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't know you
bike.
kickbox.
I'm not like great. um, I bike everywhere here in San Diego.
Hmm.
And I always want to do some movement, and I always throw in, of course, mobility because that's
Hmm.
my jam. And I play volleyball here when I can, and I'm gonna try and get into surfing. But
Oh,
I'm making
nice.
plans for snowboarding trips already, and so it's basically my life is built around movement. So
Okay.
it's very much a part of my daily life and my schedule and who I am. So I usually have to say, okay, when am I going to gym, or like what am I doing actively? And then I can build from there. Because if I don't do any of these activities, then
Mhm.
my productivity output in terms of business or just like any mental output is not as where I'd like it to be. So movement is important to me, and that just like it's not something I have to force. It's just something that's
Right.
embedded in my everyday life.
It's just part of it. So, and this was like always a thing for you. It was a kind of a no-brainer. You're just used to moving. You're used to
Yeah.
being athletic.
Yeah. Of course, there are times when, you have bouts of laziness. So,
Hmm.
when I was really deep into building the business,
Hmm.
where it required so much of my time, energy,
Absolutely.
attention, my bandwidth,
Hmm.
yeah, I totally let myself go. I also do want to bring light to that, talk about that, how, sometimes when you're trying to build something and your attention is elsewhere, things in your life can fall to the wayside. So there was about
Hmm.
3 years where I let myself go. Not super proud of it, but it had to happen for me in that time in order for me to build the business that I've built now. I'm not saying you can do both, because now I feel like I've finally
Right.
learned how to have a balance. But yeah, it was tough. Like it's hard to be motivated, physically while you're trying to put all your eggs in, you're
That
building an
basket.
empire.
Right. Well, you
So
know what? I want to drill down on that actually a little bit because myself, I'm on no scale that you are at, but I am also an entrepreneur myself. And that's one thing I definitely realized in the 3, 4, 5 years I needed to create what I was building. Like everything slipped, everything had to
mm,
take,
mm,
second fiddle to it.
yeah.
Some things of which I haven't recovered from yet. You know
Mm,
what I mean? So let me ask you, like, what sort of things do you feel you sacrificed, and how
mm.
have you found your way back from there now?
I love this question because people don't realize all the sacrifices that need to be made in order to build something great.
Absolutely.
Huge things were definitely at some point my health, um, my physical health. So I wasn't
Mhm.
eating well, and I'm
Mhm.
a stress eater. So I was so stressed with
Okay.
building my business, I would just eat and eat and eat and eat, and then I wouldn't have the motivation to work out. Um, I would also have, body dysmorphia. So I would get really depressed and think, oh my gosh, I don't look as good as I usually do. I'm not going to go out.
Right.
I'm not going to be social. And
Right.
also, I use the excuse of trying to build my business to not do social events, but mostly because I wasn't feeling 100%. I wasn't feeling myself. As you know, Anthony, as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you could attest to this, there are moments in building a business where you're going to have some depression.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that happened, I think, in tandem. Actually, it started off before um, I started to let myself go health
Mm.
wise and physically. So I started to notice I would shut down a lot. I wouldn't want to go out. I became more like antisocial. I would say no to a lot of things.
Right.
And I don't think people understood that building a business comes with these potential, you know, like effects.
Yeah.
So didn't see my friends as much. I stopped going out, and then it was like a vicious cycle. I started to feel badly
Mhm.
about myself. And then there were times where you're like, why am I doing all this? What's even the point?
Right.
And so there are a lot of ups and downs, but then at the same time, on the reverse side of that, there are all these crazy ups. Like, sure, you're going to be maybe down in the dumps for a while, but then all of a sudden the things that you reaped maybe like 8 months ago kind of all of a sudden pop up and there's growth.
Right.
And so that helps pull you up from, rock bottom. So what I really learned about this was like through this entire journey was trusting my instincts and trusting the journey. I think,
Mhm.
and I learned that recently. I would freak out and, as you said, like worry about the next step and like, not really be present. And then I learned how to be present and surrender to the journey. Obviously, like once you put in the building blocks, just trust that
Right.
it'll grow.
Right.
But those sacrifices were tough. Like I lost some friendships. My I also had moments where my family didn't understand,
Mhm.
and don't get me wrong, they're so supportive, but of course they're not entrepreneurs. They won't understand what I'm ever going through. So that was hard too. And um, I would say the biggest regret was to sacrifice my health. And
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest one. I think when you lose some friendships, yeah, it's sad, but like maybe that's meant to be, if you're not on the same level.
It's
So
true.
so
Wow.
that was those were two big sacrifices, and
Mhm.
for me, I don't know, it was worth it.
Good.
Now I can say that now being on the other side of it, where now I have a handle of my health, but
Mhm.
at the time, it definitely didn't feel worth it.
Right. Well, I'm happy that you're here and where you are now. You're doing such great things. And I feel like I'm happy that you actually kind of address this because I feel like this is one of those things that as an entrepreneur, I have this conversation a lot and I don't know if it ever actually lands to people who don't run a business or haven't built something of this ilk. It is tough. And there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of isolation that happens with the person who builds it. There's a lot of things that don't work well anymore. Like we
Mhm.
don't take care of ourselves as much because this is what we're trying to put our all into. The struggles of, okay, how am I going to fund this now? Like where's that going to come from?
God.
You have the things that come that's kind of like sweep you off your feet. You're like, I didn't plan for this thing because I didn't
Mhm.
know I had to plan for this thing. It's there's a lot there. Now,
That's
have you
never
ever,
ending.
right? Well, have you ever, so can you think of a time right now where something unexpected like that happened and it just felt like you got to a point where you're just like, okay, wait a second, like, is this something I want to be doing? Was there a point like that you've had?
There are many points like that. So
Mhm.
when you're building something big, no, you don't know. No one's given you a blueprint of your specific journey, especially if you're
Mhm.
building something that's maybe not been done before.
Right.
Um, there are many moments. Let me pinpoint a couple and talk
Sure.
about them.
Please.
Um, there were times when as you said, like where we're going to get funding and things like that.
Mhm.
I remember when I knew in order to grow, you do have to hire people because you can't do everything yourself.
Excellent. Yep.
Um, and we can get into what actually an entrepreneur is versus like a freelancer. They're very vastly different. With an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, I find comfort in placing myself in that category because now I can understand what that truly means. So
Right.
I read this article by Seth Godin. Do you know who he is?
I've
He's
heard
like
the
a
name.
master marketer,
Hmm.
and I've read his books, and he talks about entrepreneurs are those who really want to build something bigger than themselves. So
Hmm.
they have a team of people working under them to help, realize their dreams or whatever the goal is.
Right.
Whereas a freelancer works for themselves and trades time for money. So I'm trying to build something bigger than myself. And then we can get into like the vision of the company and the goals later
Sure.
on.
Hmm.
Um, but when building something bigger than yourself, you have to sacrifice your own personal comfort.
Hmm.
So for many years, and even now, I'm not the first to get paid, you know? So
Yeah.
I have to pay everyone first, and then whatever's left over, maybe, right?
Hmm.
And, that's scary. And thankfully, we're at the point where we can manage that a lot better because I have a great team. But yeah, in
Right.
the beginning, so the first hire I had was an assistant, and that was great, because I could manage how much I paid her. But then when I decided to take on a COO, like that's no joke. That's a
Mhm.
chief operations officer who's going to help me build and manage and operate the business,
Exactly.
um, which I definitely needed at some point because I'm not an organized person. I'm the visionary, I'm the
Hmm.
creative. I create the content. I love the networking aspect. I'm good at the sales, but I'm not
Right.
good at everything. I'm not great at the numbers. I'm not great at spreadsheets in general. I hate
Hmm.
spreadsheets, they scare
Hmm.
me. I'm not good with accounting, finances, the
Sure.
legal aspects of everything. And to build something like this, you need
Hmm.
to have like a legal team backing you. You need to
Yep.
have, and then accounting and then immigration. That's a whole other layer that we could get
Yeah.
into.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to hire a COO. And I'm not sure if you guys know her. She's Camille, and she is amazing. And she
Hmm.
also has her own businesses as well. So and I'd love to talk to, I'm going to have a conversation and interview Camille as well about this, the
Please.
struggles we had in the very beginning. And people don't know this. We want to tell her story where I hired her and she so graciously offered to help me. And she knew I didn't have the money to pay her a crazy salary. And so
Mhm.
she did a lot of free work for me. And I was so in my head about like, okay, well, I built all this and I had a level of self entitlement. And
Mm.
eventually, after doing months of free work for me, she's like, listen, like, you need to start paying me this amount or whatever. And we would
Right.
butt heads, and I was like, okay. So I started to pay her, but I would question, and because I became
Mhm.
focused on the money that was going out, because we didn't have a ton of money for the business or myself, I was starting to penny pinch and like question everything
Right.
she did. And I started to micromanage her. And she, at some point, she's like, why am I here? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you won't let me do my job. You're not giving me the freedom to do my
Mhm.
job. And you question everything I do.
Right.
And we had to have several of those conversations because it still didn't, you know, go through my brain that I need to let her do her thing. So after several like very um, tough and emotional conversations, I finally was like, okay, Sarah, don't let her do her thing, and
Mhm.
don't even intervene for anything,
Mhm.
even if it's something I'm questioning. Let her just do her thing because she needs that space to flourish. And obviously, we don't do the things the same way, which is why I freaking hired her, and she's great at
Exactly.
everything she does. So once I let that go, the business just, our relationship first of all improved, because there was a point where she was going to quit, and
Mm.
she's like, and kudos to Camille, she was so kind and generous, and then at some point she like knew her worth, and she's
Mhm.
like, listen, you need to pay me this salary, and she like made
Right.
it very clear, you need to pay me the
This is
salary,
what I
and
want.
it's not
Sure.
my job to figure out how you pay me, that's your job. And that I
Fair.
needed to hear that. That's very fair. And She brought up all these great points, and obviously didn't want her to leave. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to pay this incredible asset to the team, I got to really figure this out. So yeah, there were, as you said, there were freaking months when I was like, I don't know, I'm going to make payroll, because we had
Right.
her on the team, we had the assistant, we had so many people. We had like our, at the time, we had our therapists, we
Hmm.
had people doing customer relations. We also
Right.
had like social media strategy or managers. Like we had all these people. We had our lawyers, our accountants.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
and so there are many, many months where I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to make payroll. And you have to be creative. This is the point where, and people have said that I do my best work when I'm backed up against the wall, or when, like,
Sure.
there's no other recourse. So the pressure, for some reason, I guess it really draws out my competitive nature. And
Mm.
so I come up with like really creative ways to make revenue and make money. And thankfully, knock on wood, there's never been a time where I couldn't pay my team, because that is like a deal breaker for me. You
Agreed.
know,
I'm the
that's
same
where
way.
I would feel like I would fail if I couldn't even pay my people.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm the last person to get paid, if that. There were months where I didn't even get paid,
Hmm.
and thankfully I had a super amazing support team. My family helped me out a lot. um, and I'm sharing this so people know it's not easy. Yeah, and there are times where, yeah, it looked like, oh, I'm doing great on social media, but
Hmm.
for me to build a team, like, let's say, start to add in like this salary for somebody else, that takes away from me. So
Absolutely.
there were times where I had to ask my family to help bail me out. Like, you know, um, I also had really great friends who supported me in any way they can. Maybe not always financially, because I
Hmm.
don't like to ask friends for money. So it's always my family.
Yep.
Which I'm super grateful and thankful for, because I wouldn't be where I am now without
Mhm.
them. But you have to surround yourself with a great support team. And it's not always easy, because, as we discussed earlier, your
Mhm.
family and your friends who aren't entrepreneurs in what you do won't understand, like, why don't you have money for this, or like, maybe you were spending too much money in this. People will nitpick and say, oh, you shouldn't have spent that on
Right.
this advertising, or you should have just saved your money. Of course they're going to
Right.
say that. They don't know any better.
It's
So
true.
it's tough to navigate. But I think if you do have a solid support system and surrender to the journey and trust yourself. So I started to lean into my strengths more. I was like, okay, I'm really good at sales, I'm really good at networking, and
Mhm.
I'm really good at like seeing opportunities, especially in my social media, and building
Nice.
relationships. So, people kept telling me when we would hire social media, um, I guess like strategists or
Mhm.
whatever, coaches, they'd be like, oh, you should do this, 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 and this for your social media. And it, of course, would never work, because it wasn't ringing true with who I am.
Exactly.
So I would, the advice I like to give people is, you have to test things, and yeah, try different things, but you have to see what resonates best with you and aligns with your true self.
Mhm.
I for me, I tend to play the long game. For me, I like to build relationships over time. Like your plants back there, water them and nurture
Yeah.
them. But then, in the business world, it's more cutthroat. They like to ask for things immediately, and then
Mhm.
give you ultimatums and say, okay, create this deal, 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 deal. Oh,
Right.
deals off the table. I'm not that way. I'm not built that way. So for me, it's like running the long game. So a lot of my celebrity clients are my pro athletes, and even just regular clients that I had, it was always about nurturing that relationship. And so
Absolutely.
my team is really great at, seeing the individual of our customers, like seeing who they are, and focusing on how can we provide the best service to them, while also maintaining, alignment to our true vision and our true selves.
Mhm.
And that's not easy. That takes practice, and we're still working on it. So I hope that
Absolutely.
answered your question.
I mean, it did. It did. And I got a bunch of more, got a bunch more information out of it. And so did the people who are watching out there, because it's definitely important for everybody to know that this isn't a cakewalk.
Mm-mm,
The amount of times I've heard, oh, you're so lucky that you built something, that
mm,
just
mm-mm.
really, it's not luck. It's not luck. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of people who have been affected. There's a lot of people behind this. A lot of people have helped. A lot of things have gone wrong. A lot of things have been started again. Um, but we get there, and we get there because we push through to do it. So there's no luck. It's work.
No, it's work, and that's what it is. And people don't want to put in the work.
That's it. The
They
amount of
want to
people I've
get,
had just call me up. Hey, can you tell me how you did your business? I'm trying to do one the same, like verbatim.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
no, no, I can't. I
Oh
can't.
my
It's
gosh.
impossible.
I
You
get
know?
that too. And then what actually makes it really challenging for me is when I
Mhm.
do offer my time and my
Right.
services and I
Right.
try to coach them as best I can and give them advice. The worst, I don't know about you, Anthony, because I know you coach and consult for people too, is when they
Mhm.
don't do what you tell them to do.
Hate it.
It's like a waste of my time.
Right. I could have been doing other things to
Yeah.
build me and build other relationships I've had. And now I've taken this time and you've just been like, oh, that sounds great. I'm not gonna do it though.
Yeah. Or you come up with excuses. I hate when people
Right.
come up with excuses because I are you kidding? Like for us to run our businesses and build
Mhm.
something, we can't make excuses.
We don't
If
have the
I was making
ability.
excuses, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? You have to take responsibility and say, well, fuck, that didn't work. Or like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm blocked because of some insecurity. It's like, how do I
Mhm.
get past this? And people don't want to do the internal work. So
Yes.
that's huge for me. I don't know about you, Anthony, because we have different upbringings.
Mhm.
But growing up, I had very low self esteem, low self confidence. And as we
Absolutely.
talked about this before, I'm still battling that. But because I knew I wanted to build something great, I do feel
Mhm.
like all of us are destined for something great. And it's up to us if we want to step up and rise to the occasion. And I knew I always wanted to. I always knew
Agreed.
I was destined for greatness, but I knew I was stopping myself.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why I seeked out a therapist. It wasn't because I was depressed or anything like that. For me, it was because, like, hey, how do I unlock my full potential? How
Mhm.
do I break down internal blockages? Because I know my fear is stopping me from doing this. My fear is preventing me
Right.
from shining, stepping into my light and shining and finding the self confidence to build something. And, I still battle with self worthiness. Like every
Mhm.
day, there's self doubt. And I'm like, I don't know if I deserve this.
Right.
Imposter syndrome is so real in my world. So you have to do the internal work to figure out how
Mhm.
to manage that, how to maybe overcome it, and how to maybe utilize your personal tools to improve and get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And I mean, we did just talk about this before we got on. There sometimes there's the feeling of like, oh, I make a choice. Okay, you know what? That might not be the best choice. Or like, I'm not sure if this is the right choice, and
Second
like kind of
guess.
vocalizing that, second guessing. But just as you said, you've done the internal work to try to get through that. And you surrounded yourself with a team that actually supports you heavily on
Yeah.
that
They
front. They
always
will
call
not
me out.
allow you to do it,
They called me out in
So
front of you
they
in
did.
our
They
last
did.
meeting.
But that's what you need. That's how you know you have a good team. I want to switch gears real quick. Thank you for that. That's, I mean, so much information. Now I feel like we've connected on a different level now, but I want to know what it was like. Okay, so you mentioned that there are a lot of difficulties when you're creating something, especially that's not been created before. There's no roadmap. Nobody's telling you how to get there. But I'm curious as to how you managed to navigate this
Mm.
in an industry or in with a practice that didn't exist and has to now be certified as a health practice to then allow you to build. Like, how did you get through those steps? Because I already know how hard it is to start a business in general, but now having something recognized as like a legitimate health practice, like how did you get there?
Well, I'm going to chalk it up to, you know, having a vision to help people. I never always knew how that would be,
Right.
you know, so my drive is to help people.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily, my passion is to help people and inspire people. My passion isn't, if you might think it's stretch therapy, but that's not my passion. It's just a vehicle in which,
Hmm.
in order for me to express that passion of helping others. And I
Sure.
luckily found something in the realm of movement, which I love. So I'm grateful for that because I know how hard it is to find your own passions. A lot of
Hmm.
people are walking around out there. I have a lot of friends and family who don't know what they're passionate about.
Right. For
And that's
sure.
fine. But, I think for me, I needed to have a purpose in order to walk this life and really find fulfillment.
Hmm.
So, well, that's a really good question. There's a lot there. How did I get
I'm
there?
sure. I'm sure.
But a lot of it is having surrounding myself
Hmm.
with really great supportive people. So the first thing that came to mind was my mentors and my team.
Hmm.
So I had like my team, a lot of like we've become like a family and we're friends. I actually would say I always tell people I'm the worst boss ever because I want to be everyone's best friend.
Right, 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 right.
I'm a social butterfly, and I get you know, I get I feed off other people's energy, right?
For sure.
Um, so actually, Camille, she's the COO. We actually worked together 10 years ago at, I don't know if you guys would know, Good Life Fitness.
Hmm.
It's a big box gym chain in
Yeah.
Canada. And she was my boss 10 years ago. She was my assistant general manager, and I was membership sales at the time.
Cool.
Um, and so I always had this natural drive to be the best, and I'm competitive, but people don't always see that. They always just see like this quiet, shy, soft spoken, like
Hmm.
Asian person, a woman of color who's
Hmm.
like 5'2".
Hmm.
And so it takes a lot for me to prove myself. And I've learned early on, because I don't have that big commanding presence, which is something I'm working on.
Hmm.
Um, I was going to show up through the work I did and just show
Mm.
how amazing I'm at the stuff I did. So I was a membership consultant, and I was like the number one in sales in our team in
Nice.
that club.
Hmm.
Um, the whole time I was there.
Mm.
And I was so competitive, I didn't want the others to beat me, so I would always be number one. And so
Fair. Yeah.
people, yeah, I'm like the I remember, I think I told you in our last podcast, I'm like a sleeper hit. I like to see myself as a sleeper
Right.
hit
Right. Right.
because
Right. Right. Right.
I love movies. Uh, so um, Camille and I worked together, and we became fast friends.
Mm.
And then years later, she came back to me when I became a stretch therapist to get some help with her back pain and things that was happening. And
Right.
I helped her, and she was like, "This is something wonderful." And then at the time, she was still working in corporate Good Life, and she had a
Right.
really good role high up. She was in a corporate life for 12 years. She knows her shit. And I would always come to her with like customer relations issues, or
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
okay, how do I write up this email, in order to get the outcome I want,
Right.
how do I
Right. Right.
speak?
Right.
How do I communicate? She's great with communication. And I never really learned like the language, the proper language, or had formal training.
Hmm.
And so she would come for her sessions, and then I would pick her brain,
Right.
and vice versa. And then we started to just like get the ball rolling. Like, should we work together? Because she wanted to build something of her own and move on as well.
Ah,
And
cool.
yeah, so then 10 years later, we started to work together, and you know, with her help and support, she's convinced me to try new things. So, like, for a long time when I was by myself, I'd hear things from other people, but it's different when you hear it from a team who's been in the industry, who knows what they're talking about. And
Hmm.
so she convinced me. And I had mentors. I had Scott from My Detox is a great mentor of mine.
Right.
My closest mentor is Mark LaFleur from True Local, who is a
Nice.
huge source of inspiration and motivation for me. We just spoke on the phone yesterday, and he's been my biggest champion and cheerleader. So
Mm.
I would say, obviously, having the natural drive to create something great, that's what drives me and has gotten me to where I am.
Hmm.
Um, and you want to have a vision, you want to have a purpose in life, because otherwise, if you don't have one, why I'll try all this effort. um, so these mentors and this team, they help foster my dreams. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, I kind of want to do this, and they'll be like challenging me at the same time. So Scott, like 2 years, like back in 2018, he was like, Sarah, I don't know why you're still taking one-on-one clients. If you want to
Right.
create something big, because he knew I wanted to create something bigger, because I would pick his brain. He would come in for
Sure.
stretches, I would like pick his brain. um he's like, you need to come up with your own system. And because I have major imposter syndrome, I was like, no one's
Mm.
ever going to want to learn from me. I'm not a physical therapist. I was coming up
Right.
all these excuses.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Right.
he planted the seed, and then it still took me a while. And then that's when I was like, okay, what's blocking me? I can sense this massive amount of fear internally. let's try and do the hard work to overcome that. And as I was doing that work, trusting that work, 2 years later, my team again brought it up, and they were like, because it was right before the pandemic. It was like 2019. My team was like, hey, if you want to build something big, you're going to have to create something of your own
Right.
that
Absolutely.
people want. And you have built the brand. People are listening. They want more. You have to give them more. Can you step up? And I was like, all right. And they were like, hey, why don't you just start with something, create something? We can try it. If it doesn't work, whatever, right?
It is what it is. Sure.
So it was Camille and Devin. They're like, create your own system. So I created the performance stretch system, but I wanted it to be good. So I had a board of chiropractors, and we have a chiro on our team who helped me review each exercise for safety and effectiveness. They helped me ensure that it was a system that they would back up and approve, and made sure that it wasn't going to harm anyone. And that was really important for me. I didn't want to just
Nice.
create a random, I wanted it to be a good product. And then I had to put my money where my mouth is. I would test it on my clients, and started to use it on my pro athletes. And I remember it was kind of incredible because of my team, they forced me to put it out. I don't want to say forced, but they encouraged me to put it out. And so we did a beta launch, and
Right.
it was well received. Obviously, we did it to gain feedback. So getting that
Sure.
feedback is important. We
Sure.
got a lot of feedback to improve it.
Nice.
Worked on it for a few months, and then launched it officially.
Nice.
And we were just like, okay, gotta just trust it. It's out there. People accept it. Great.
Right.
Not. And luckily, we put a lot of effort and motor and fuel behind it, like promoting it, utilizing it as best I can, stretching as many people as I possibly can, like inviting people, influencers, whoever, celebrities to come like experience the performance stretch system. And
Right.
luckily we got great feedback and kept using that feedback to improve. And then all of a sudden, I get Russell Wilson DMing me in my Instagram
Nice.
saying, the work you're doing looks amazing. Would you like to come and work together? And
Fantastic.
this happened right at the beginning of the pandemic,
Mhm.
March of last year, 2020. And then the pandemic hit. So I couldn't even go
Right.
there. Like, they closed the borders, no one knew what's happening.
Right. Right. Right.
Long story short, I'm going to try and shorten it.
That's all right.
I finally get to go to San Diego to, I guess, audition last June 2020. And it was really validating, because he was like, I really want to experience the floor work, your system that you've created. And I was like, oh, okay. Yes, let's do it. And then I
Sure.
performed it on him, and he was like, this is really something special. This is magical. Like, and then that's when he offered me an official position to move to Seattle and work with him. And
Wow.
that was like mega validating, because
Sure.
I had created it like not even a year before. And, to have a pro athlete who's at the top of his game to like endorse it, that was validating for me and my team, because we were like, hey, we're doing this. Like, and it's not just, creating a stretch system. It's like we're building something for the world. We're helping the world,
Absolutely.
and we're doing this because we have bigger goals and vision and mission in mind, not just stretch therapy, not just to stretch the world, but to help others in many other ways. So this is just a vehicle in which it affords us to do so.
Wow. Well, number one, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's an excellent story. And I'm happy that like you're seeing the fruits of your labor come forward in such a big way. That's awesome, especially at a time where a lot of things aren't moving
No.
well for people, So that's great. And actually you saying that brings up another thing for me. So you're all set, you're starting to work. Russell Wilson calls, says, yo, this is what I want you to do. I want you to kind of perform your setup here. I want you to help us out. Like, let's grow this thing. But that's in the States. You're not from the States. How do you
No.
make that move happen with all of the horseshit that happens when you're trying to become, like, to be able to live not even just live in America, but like work in America if you're not from there. There is so much red tape. How did you manage to make that move happen? And what were some of the struggles there? Because I'm sure there were a lot.
Yeah. And the added bonus of the pandemic.
Right?
So
Right?
that's super tricky to navigate because no one, even the Border Patrol, the
Mhm.
Homeland Security, no one knew what to do or what was going on. So when you're asking
Mhm.
for answers, they don't even know what to tell you. So everyone's guessing at this point, and we were guessing. And luckily, and I want to give credit where credit's due, Russell's immigration team,
Mhm.
they were so helpful. There was a one particular immigration lawyer. He was so helpful. He really
Right.
championed for me and Camille, and we worked really close with him. And you know, Camille and I really did a lot of research on our own. We did a lot of hard work to try and make this
Mhm.
happen because a lot of people are like, this might not happen because of the pandemic.
Right.
Um, so no one knows. Like, it's just really tricky territory. But we pushed through. It was really challenging for us. Like, Camille is a freaking master uh, at research, and so she did a lot of
Mhm.
research and diving in and reaching out to as many people she could talk to, calling the border, not getting a lot of answers. Uh,
Sure.
but luckily, I don't want to just like boil it down to like tenacity and like perseverance, but that's basically what we had to do. We had to keep asking questions, keep calling people, even though it felt like a broken record.
Right.
And eventually, we would find a little bit of progress. Okay, let's latch onto that and see how can we like maximize this and optimize that. And we worked really well with the lawyer, and he helped us big time. Um, and even when we finally put the application in, we were all like,
Yeah.
and luckily it worked out in our favor, but it wasn't easy. You really need to have great support, and I'm not the greatest with research, so I knew I needed Camille's help on this. So she was all hands on deck, and like um we had a lot of meetings with the lawyers, and on our side, because I'm a Canadian business, we didn't even get
Right.
into that, accounting and tax, and we're still
Right.
navigating through that. But that was like a freaking, I don't want to say nightmare, because at first it felt nightmarish to
Mhm.
have, it was stressful to think of all these things, right?
Sure.
Okay, the visa, legal aspects, but also now tax and
Mhm.
accounting, and there's so much gray area, right? Because
Right.
Canada, US, it's seemingly, you would think it's like quite seamless to
Mhm.
transition, but it's not,
It's
especially if you're
not.
like a small business. So it's not like we had tons of money to just throw at the situation.
Right, right, right.
Um, so it was just a lot of like diligent hard work and trying to talk to the right people, which is not always
Mhm.
easy. So
Mhm.
I would say, like, have a good support team and have those who are good at what they do that you're not good at help you out. And you'll notice the common theme to all of these answers to your questions, Anthony, is like having a good solid support system. And it's not
Sure.
easy to find. Like, finding a mentor is not easy.
Mhm.
Even my mentor, Mark, he's like still trying to find a mentor that, aligns with him and who he is.
Right.
And he's still crushing it. Um, but for me, it was like going through a couple of tough mentors that actually didn't have my best interests at heart.
Mhm.
I had a coach too, and I realized very early on that she wasn't invested in who I was. And then I hired so many people who have been through the team and just didn't work out. And you want to have, now we have a really solid core team who's like
Mhm.
bought into the vision of the company,
Right.
and that's not easy. I had 5 assistants in the span of a year.
Shoot.
Just sometimes doesn't work out. But but then eventually, if you keep moving forward and pushing
Mhm.
through and putting out the energy and try to track the energy you're looking for, you'll eventually get there. But it is hard work. You onboard, it's frustrating, right, Anthony? When you onboard someone, put all your time and energy, and then 2 weeks later, they're like, "This isn't for me." And you're like,
You're like, come on.
okay, just spend whatever on you, but that's the nature of the game. So
Mhm.
I think when you finally come to terms with the sacrifices, financial sacrifices, and time sacrifice you'll have to make in order to build, something great,
Mhm.
you'll be better off. Because I used to be like stressing out over every little thing. Oh my God, we spent on this person, blah, blah, blah. But now
Right.
I'm like, that's part of it. If I want to reach, the top of Mount Everest, these are some of the hard climbs we're going to have to do. Might fall
Fair.
back down a bit. We have to get back up. But, as long as I can see us traversing upwards towards the summit,
Then you're
then,
good.
then I'm good.
Right? Doesn't matter how big the step as long as you're moving in the right direction, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like that. I like, okay, cool. So then let me ask you then. So there are going to be a lot of people who are looking at this, who might be struggling in their own business journey. They might have put in all the work. They might be out there doing their thing, but there's just a lot of pressures. There's a lot of things going on that might not be converting the way they want it to convert. If you had a piece of advice for those people,
Hmm.
what would it be?
Well, first off, if you want someone to help you with your online conversions, sales, and digital conversions, you talk to Anthony. It's this guy right here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Big plug for me. You can catch me at tp.exe on Instagram.
um, oh, that's tough. So I always
Mhm.
tell people, because I've helped coach a lot of people in business, especially in this
Absolutely.
industry. Um, you have to first figure out what you want. I know that sounds so
Fair,
simple, but like,
fair.
what is your end goal here? Um, it can't just be as simple as I want to make money, because
Right.
everyone wants to make money, but what
Of
drives
course.
you? I think it's really important to know who you are. So I always tell people, write out your strengths.
Mm.
Okay, write out your strengths and lean into that. Say, okay, you know what? I know I'm really good at sales, so I'm going to handle the sales. I know I'm really good and I like networking. I'm going to focus on that. So lean
Mhm.
into it and like take it and run with it and just crush it. Like network the hell out of it.
Right.
Make sales, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you can start to hire people who are good at the other stuff, like operations. Like I didn't do my taxes for 3 years. I've told the story a million times, because I was like, I can't do this. I hate numbers. I don't like doing any of this work. So I avoided it for
Mhm.
3 years. And eventually I was like, okay, I've gotten to a point where I need to legitimize this business. And I hired an accountant, and I paid for it, man. Like I paid her thousands of dollars to get my books right. And we set up
Right.
our bookkeeping company. And like,
Yep.
so I would definitely make sure you have uh, an accountant and a
Mhm.
lawyer. It depends on what kind of line of work you're into, but because we're in, health and wellness and touching other people,
Right.
a
Right.
lawyer
Right.
is always a good idea. And yeah, it's expensive. They're going to give you like, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, a new small business, they're going to hit you with a crazy hard number.
Yeah. Yes. Trust me.
So
I've been
yeah.
through that as well.
Oh yeah,
Lawyers are
yeah,
not
yeah.
cheap. Lawyers, like I haven't that actually funny you say that, and thank you for bringing that up. One of my friends who's been running, he owns a bunch of properties across Toronto. He's been doing it honestly since we were in high school. And when I started my business, he was a person I connected with. And I was like,
Um,
what do you suggest? He's like, get a good lawyer, get a good accountant. Accountant I already had. He suggested his lawyers, and they're kind of one of those lawyers here in Canada that when a company sees their name, they're like, okay, you know what? We'll just do what we need to do.
yeah.
But you pay out the ass for that.
Oh my God.
So,
Let me tell
I'm with
you,
you.
right? And like at first it's hard to friggin' pill to swallow, but
Sure.
eventually you're like, okay, this needs to be set in place. And I've learned a lot over the last years, in the past year, because it's been a whirlwind. Like the past year I moved to the States,
Right.
worked full time for a pro athlete. We're all running a business during the pandemic and trying to navigate through immigration
Nuts.
and tax and all those things, and trying to find um, the ability to physically move there. That was
Hmm.
hard.
Right.
um, and then
Oh, wow.
traveling a lot with the pro athlete and learning how to work with a new team. So it was a lot. I definitely worked with my therapist every week.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone in Seattle, and it was
Mhm.
quarantine when I they really encourage you to not, interact with other people. So I couldn't make friends. And as,
So
I
just
mentioned,
inside.
I'm a social butterfly.
Right.
So for me to be isolated was really, really challenging mentally and psychologically. So I had to go through a lot. And luckily I had a team again back home, the
Right.
of my company, and I had really good friends that I could, vent to. I'm a real ranter. Like I love a good rant sesh. That really helps me out.
For sure. Yep.
And they helped me out big time, and my therapist for sure. And trying to get back to things I love. Like I, I think I told you last time I hired a vocal coach,
Right.
right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So we would do online virtual sessions to help me with my singing and
Right.
all these things.
We got to
So,
hear that at some point.
oh, I know. I've
I'll
been,
produce a track for you. I'll do
yeah.
that. You let me know. I'll get the music going for you.
Oh my God, that would be so great. Honestly, that's just what I want. I just want to sing.
Love
That's
it.
my ultimate passion. And everyone's like, oh, and like, it's shocking because yeah, I've been too shy and maybe
Hmm.
like, self-conscious to put it out there, but I do love
Hmm.
to sing and perform. And, eventually that's the goal, to like allow my life to just freely sing and perform whenever I want. So,
That's right. Oh, well, you know what? We're gonna look out for that and get it set up. Got to hit the karaoke bars, and we got to make them tracks for you, and
oh,
then hit the SoundCloud, get on the YouTube. We have the track. It'll get there. It'll
I
get
just
there.
want to jam it out. Let's do it.
We'll let you jam. Okay, cool. I love that. Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, thank you for spending the time with me and having this conversation. I've learned a ton. Hopefully, everybody out there has learned a ton as well. But before we get out of here, where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on at the Stretch Therapist on Instagram.
Mhm.
That would be your best bet, but you can also check out sarahmariano.com if you want to become a certified stretch therapist. We would love to have you in person, or we also have our online virtual video course that you can take.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. And for anybody out there who's watching, if there's anything about this that you enjoyed, I'm sure you enjoyed the whole thing. Put it down in the comments. If you have any other questions that you feel like you want to get answered, we can do a part two. So let us know down
Uh,
there as well. You
I would
know?
love that. But I just want to take a moment, everyone, to thank Anthony here. He's super busy. Just before we went on, he was telling me all the shit that he's going through right now.
Of
But he did this for me as a favor to me. I
course.
really valued him and his insights and his perspectives, and I think he asked amazing questions. And I really wanted to do this interview to showcase my journey in this world, and I thought Anthony would be the correct person to help me do so. So thank you so much. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
no problem. That's so kind of you. You have done so much, and your life is so interesting that it was super easy to knock out. But hopefully, we'll get to do this again soon. So for
Yes,
everybody
please.
out there, thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your lives with us, and we'll catch you soon. Okay.
And don't forget to check out. Should I give them your Instagram to
Sure.
Den360?
Yeah, Den 360, all spelt out. That's my arcade. Have an arcade just north of the city in Toronto. So feel free to check it out there. If you have any questions or anything else that's coming through, or you want to know a little bit more about social media, paid social, what else I do on the
Yeah,
back end,
that's what he does.
you can
So
hit
he's
me up.
he's also helping us out. So talking about like good support system, he's helping us out with understanding the ad space because I don't know
Mhm.
anything about the ad space. So, um, he's so humble. He's not going to toot his own horn. Which I very much resonate with. As you know, I
Mhm.
have a hard time like talking myself up or bigging myself up. So I'm going to big you up since you
No, I
big me up.
appreciate it.
So definitely hit him up. What should they hit you up through email, or like what's the best,
Yeah,
your
so you
website?
can so you can hit me up info@den360.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. I check that too. And the website is den360.com. DNTHREESIXTY, all spelled out.com. You can hit me up on any of those forums, and yeah, I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. That
Take
was
care.
great.